Hello, welcome. I'm Silvia Kimetlian, Technical Manager at GeneXus, and I'm here to tell you about the key new features of GeneXus 18. We know that many of you are already working with this version, taking advantage of all the benefits to make more complex applications in a simpler way, speed up, and at the same time be future-proof. But we have not stopped there. We are still working on a new edition of GeneXus Next edition. But that does not mean that GeneXus 18 does not continue to evolve. In the last time, we have released several GeneXus 18 updates based on your experiences and new technologies that have emerged in recent times. That is why it is a constant work of updating and being able to provide you with new technologies and certain improvements and functionalities. New technologies and certain improvements and functionalities that are essential for the development of your applications. And in turn, your users can take advantage of these improvements and functionalities. Let me share with you some numbers of all the features and improvements that we have made in this release. Bien, we have processed more than 1,400 SACs and we have worked on more than 400 new features and enhancements. This is based on your experience and on the new technologies that have emerged. Therefore, you can take advantage of these improvements for your systems and in turn for your users. That is why we say that with GeneXus 18, you can generate applications with better performance, more secure, more scalable in the cloud, applications with more observability and monitoring, applications with more modern interfaces and large-scale corporate applications. At the same time, with this version, you can generate more intelligent applications. I am going to start telling you about the latest technologies supported by GeneXus 18. If you are working with front-end generators, in Angular we have support for Angular 18. This, as you know, is automatically updated when you build from GeneXus, so it is an automatic update. In the case of native mobile generators, we support Android 14 and iOS 17. In the backend generators for Java, we have a new build system based on Gradle. This allows us to generate for Java 21, which is the latest LTS released. In addition, we have Spring Boot support. This is an extension of Spring Framework that allows us to prototype Java applications without the need to have a Tomcat installed. Spring Boot has the advantage of being easy to install. It is much faster to prototype and at the same time it is more modern. For the .NET generator, we are supporting version 8, which is the latest LTS. And we also include the support of a new type of authentication with SQL Server via Microsoft Entra ID. In keeping with our commitment to be at the forefront of technology, from now on, the .NET Framework Generator has been declared legacy. This means that all the new functionalities will be included only in the .NET generator. We have worked on our GAM security module. In that sense, we have added a new type of authentication via API key. This allows us to integrate applications more easily. At the same time, we are supporting automatic locking and unlocking of users in the GAM. This is valid in certain cases where users logging in are invalid or forget their password. This allows, according to the policies defined in the GAM, to block or unblock those users. Regarding reporting, we have added new object query security. This allows the backend services that serve the interface of that query object to indicate if they have security or not. In the case of Angular, we are also supporting two-factor authentication and one-time password. And in turn, we are preparing the GAM so that the super apps can be single sign-on. This means that when a user logs in from a super app, then from the mini app, they don't have to log in again and can use the same credentials. Of course, this has all the control of data privacy, because if there are mini apps developed by different vendors, that information is not shared. We know that more and more applications are consuming large amounts of data, and that requires more scalability. We support non-SQL databases, also known as non-relational databases, to meet the needs of cloud-native apps. Our commitment to support these databases highlights our dedication to the cloud-native ecosystem. In addition to the relational databases that GeneXus already supports and you already know, since some time ago in GeneXus 18, we already have support for Amazon DynamoDB, which is a non-SQL database, and now in the latest upgrades, we have added support for Azure Cosmos DB. These non-relational databases allow the processing of large amounts of data, especially for cloud applications. In GeneXus 18, we also have the support of read replicas. That is, making a copy of the main instance database and moving some operations to that database. For example, read operations are performed on the read replica database, while the main database instance can process more requests more efficiently. This is especially important when you have databases in the cloud. Observability and monitoring allow us to understand how an application behaves, especially when it has many components and is distributed. Therefore, in GeneXus 18, we have OpenTelemetry support, which is a standard to be able to perform this analysis. This allows us to analyze the logs, metrics, and traces obtained with the behavior of the application. For example, when a problem occurs, to know in which component the problem is occurring, and to be able to solve it as soon as possible. In addition, for processes such as business components, data providers, and procedures, we are generating the span property, which allows us to obtain more detailed information in order to analyze them and also to solve problems associated with these objects. We all know that applications need to have modern and attractive interfaces. This is what our users ask for. That is why in GeneXus 18 we have made improvements to be able to generate this type of interfaces. We start by updating our own products. In the case of GXFlow, we have done a redesign of the user interface so that it uses Unanimo controls and guides, and this allows it to have a much more modern interface. We have also updated the grid and inbox controls. In addition, we are preparing the Angular generator to be able to generate back-office applications. That is why we are including the work with pattern with the properties associated with this pattern, such as automatic refresh and tabular grid. In the case of the native mobile generators, we are also including new versions of the visual controls, such as web view, wheel control, app rating, and review. Another topic we have been working on a lot in GeneXus 18 is the development of super apps. As you know, a super app is a native application that allows you to host mini-apps in it. Mini-apps are small applications that allow solving a certain requirement or service. GeneXus 18 is the only tool in the market that allows to create all the components of a super app. To create the super app, we have a new object called Super App Object. The other option is to convert a native application into a super app. On the other hand, mini-apps are small applications that fall within the domain of the super app, which allows solving a certain problem or service. These mini-apps can be native or web-based. Now, in addition, in GeneXus 18, we have made several improvements with respect to the super apps. For example, we have improved the security of the mini-apps. We also improved the mini-app center, which is the place where all the mini-apps are centered, and we also included a mock for the super app. This is a framework that allows developers to simulate the behavior of the super app, focusing on building the mini-app even if the super app itself hasn't been developed yet. This setup enables testing and validation in a realistic environment. If you want to learn more about this topic, I recommend you to watch Pablo Mazzilli's talk. We all know that large corporate solutions have the challenge of managing complex and constantly evolving systems. To address this complexity, modularization becomes essential. That is why the system must be divided into different subsystems and generate a composite application, These applications have to be, among other things, modularizable, reusable, easy to deploy, and easy to use. Also, maintenance has to be easy. That's why it's so necessary to have governance over all the components of the application. The most important aspect for generating this type of application in GeneXus is the modules, an object that allows us to create packages with specific functionality and then share them with the rest of the knowledge bases. In GeneXus 18, we have added a new value for the object visibility property, the knowledge base value, which allows you to indicate whether a module is to be accessed from other knowledge bases or only to be used in the knowledge base in which it is being worked on. In addition, we have the support of being able to share modules via the NuGet repository. This has the advantage that this repository has automatic validation of dependencies, which allows to download a module and in turn automatically download the dependencies of that module. In addition, we have incorporated improvements in the design ops process, for example, improvements in the import from Sketch and import from Figma, which allows this process to be much more agile. And on the other hand, we have included improvements in the GeneXus language, which also improves the productivity of developers. In order to be able to manage the life cycle of this type of large-scale applications, we need certain components that help us to make this work in a much more efficient way. As you already know, GeneXus Server is the repository where all knowledge is housed. It is the source of truth for everything that developers work on. On the other hand, as we said before, we need a server for the modules that maintains the entire life cycle of the components of our application. At the same time, we have the Mini App Center, which is the repository where all the mini apps are in case we use super apps. Of course, we cannot forget the DevOps process. That is to say, to have all the processes automated to be able to deploy our application, and throughout this process, to have testing automatically with GXTest. In addition to all the improvements I have mentioned, with GeneXus 18, you can include artificial intelligence technology to your processes. This is achieved by interacting with Globant Enterprise AI APIs. In other words, with GeneXus 18, we can also create more intelligent applications. Of course, in the new edition of GeneXus, this is going to be much simpler. This allows you to have smarter applications with GeneXus 18. If you want to know more about how we introduce this artificial intelligence technology in our processes, I recommend you to watch Luis Murillo's talk. Then, as we have seen throughout this video, technology is advancing fast, and we want you not only to keep pace, but to lead by developing more modern, secure, scalable, and intelligent applications. GeneXus 18 is your chance to take advantage of it and be able to take advantage of all the improvements I have mentioned and be at the forefront of applications. I invite you to use this version and take advantage of all the benefits I have just mentioned. If you have any questions, please contact us, and we are at your disposal. Thank you very much.